Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Red Alert for Anfield Index. October was the month, ladies and gents. The Reds were unbeaten. I'm going to say that again, just in case you missed it. October was the month. The Reds were unbeaten. We've got all those fixtures, all those results to review, and importantly, November coming up, and a little special segment that the lads may or may not be prepared for. So you know me, Dave Davis, your normal host, coming to you from the same as the other two, a pretty pissing it down beyond belief, miserable Edinburgh. But we're still excited for the Reds and the kickoff tomorrow. So we'll start with the usual question, one by one. In a word, or 6,000 for you normally, Mark, describe October in as minimal words as you can.
Near perfection.
Jamesy?
Fantastic.
Oof. And I am going to hit with semi-erotic. That's what I'm going to go with for the month there. So we've got our thoughts on October, ladies and gents. But let's get into it. I mean, Mark, we were all wrong on the results. Let's just line these up, people, in case you missed October. Bologna, a 2-0 victory. Palace, a 1-0 victory in the early kickoff. Back from the international break, Chelsea, a 2-1 victory at Anfield. Leipzig, 1-0 away, Darwin Núñez. Arsenal, last weekend, a 2-2 draw. And a Carabao Cup 3-2 victory away at the Amex. We were wrong, but that's a brilliant month, isn't it, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, it's more than brilliant. It's in your wildest dreams, you could have expected 2 months in, that this is where we'd find ourselves. I think the big difference this month compared to when we sat and did this a month ago is just we have a lot more to go on now. We've seen a lot more of Liverpool, a lot tougher games for Liverpool, a lot more congested fixtures for Liverpool. There's been a lot to contend with this month, and that's why, we weren't that optimistic going into the predictions for the month last month, because it just looked unlikely that we would have a month as good as we've had. And yeah. I think we've got to the stage now with this slot team where you can start calling it a machine. You can start kind of seeing it win in so many different ways and enjoying that, and so much to like about it. The games individually, we found different ways in all of those games to win them, with a lot of different guys being used for the first time in the season, which is cool to see. We've had a lot more people playing their part in the victories. Guys like Jones coming in and having big impacts in games. Núñez coming in and having big impacts in games. Seems as though any goalkeeper can play for Liverpool and have a big impact in games and be brilliant. It doesn't matter who the individual is. And also just some stellar performances for Liverpool, again, from similar guys that we saw last month, playing brilliantly. But the bits that I really liked were this month in particular was the quality of the goals, the caliber of the goals we scored this month. There was some really, really hard to pick a favourite amongst all those, like some fantastic goals. The Bologna game had 2 of them. The Salah to McAllister goal was absolutely superb. Then Salah launches a monster one in himself. The Arsenal goal between Salah and Núñez, just fantastically worked goal. Trent out on the outside for Núñez, and that is just football of the highest caliber again. Gakpo having his own little competition the other night of finishing brilliance. Jones just superb finish against Arsenal himself. Yeah, loads of goals to love, and also more of the same things we talked about a month ago, just great resilience. The midfield looks like it's still working, still kind of wondering, waiting for it to fail, to collapse, without the classic DM. Hasn't happened, not even close. It looks as good as we were saying a month ago. And the train kind of just keeps rolling for us. We look really strong. I think we'll probably find at the end of this podcast, when we do our predictions for next month, that they'll look a lot rosier than what we all said last month, because they've given us that confidence. They've shown us more, and now I think we all believe a little more in what we've got here.
Yeah, no doubts about it at all. And I was surprised at you, Jamesy, last month, because you're usually the vibey type of person, got that sort of hipster feel, and you weren't that positive, if you're honest, in October. but they surprised you, I bet, too, didn't they?
Oh yeah, I couldn't believe it. Near perfection. I just couldn't believe. I mean, the Crystal Palace and the Arsenal game as well. I just wasn't sure that was gonna happen. And just watching it, I was like, wow, we've done it. With when you think about like obviously the Crystal Palace game, really cagey, 1-0. We should have buried them. Like we should have been up. Jota missed really two really good chances, and that was a bit disappointing. And we were hanging on a bit as well. They should have scored a couple of goals as well. So it was one of those things that 1-0 up the road, and that's it. I guess if I look back in October, the big thing is that Alisson start. We must have just thought, wow, this is it. Kelly coming in has just done an unbelievable job. Canati and Van Dijk again just leveling up in regard to that centre of defence, and it's great to see. And then you got that spine of McAllister and Gravenberch, and Szoboszlai is just playing. They're just the three of them. And again, we talked about this last pod, which was the three of them haven't played a lot of football together, and now they're starting to gel. So I think there's even more to come off them. And then again, Gakpo and Diaz, just really good to see. It's a great team.
Yeah, it really, honestly, I think it's surpassed everything we expected. And let's be honest, it's surpassed everything that we expected because we were completely wrong on most of the results. No one sort of takes a full house, or in a good way, though, sort of the negatives were well defeated. What I really like this month as well, gents, is it's the variation. Like Palace, as you said, James, we were absolutely dominant in that game. Yeah, there was bits late on and a ridiculous penalty shout that never was, but dominant in that one. Chelsea, as Slot said, they had most of the ball, and there was periods, it wasn't quite backs to the wall stuff, but we had to show we could defend a lead. So it was good. We sort of took that off the list as well. And then Leipzig, professional. Arsenal, a bit of everything, because we had to battle back twice, which you didn't quite know if we had, did you? But they did that at a really tough place to go. So there's just so much to like. And interestingly, as JP comments there, it's going to be an undefeated November. Let's wait a sec, JP. We still got a bit of October to talk about, in all honesty. But October, Jamesy, I'll come to you first of all for this one. I'll make sure you never speak to me again if you get this player wrong. Who was the player of the month for October?
There were so many good candidates, right? There really was. And like I'm just going to go I feel, and I think it's Gravenberch, to be truthfully honest. And you can shake your head. You can shake your head as much as you want, but he's the one that if you took him out of the squad, there would be problems with Liverpool. And that's the reason why I'm saying that he's player. And yes, we have Canati and we have Van Dijk as well that have been absolutely colossal. But I'm going with Gravenberch. Just his numbers, his passing, his progressive passes, any of his metrics, I'm going with Gravenberch.
So just to clarify, Jamesy, you've gone with Gravenberch, you've name-checked VVD and Ibu. Now, in your defence, and it's mitigation rather than defence, VVD and Ibu, insanely good this month. However, JP saying that, Ibu. Mark, player of the month.
It's head and shoulders Mo Salah. There's just no question about it. Mo Salah has affected nearly every game we've played in the most positive way. He scored and assisted against Bologna. He scored against Chelsea, the little penalty against Chelsea. He sets up Nunez. I mean, basically scores against Leipzig. He scores against Arsenal, and then gets most of the night off against Brighton. He's affected positively every game, and not just in a small way. Some of the assists we saw, some of the goals we saw, the Bologna goal, unbelievable. Mo Salah hit peak Mo Salah again this month, and he was head and shoulders our best player.
I disagree with that, and I'll tell you why I disagree with that is because against Bologna, if you look at how many passes, he was trying to make the right pass, but it was wrong. And again,
but look at the two things that he didn't do. I mean, his assist for McAllister is fantastic, and his goal is, it's back to like a classic Roma goal. It was absolutely pinpoint.
Have a look at his stats. I'm not buying that. I'm sorry.
You can make as many poor passes as you want in a particular game. If you come out with the two most important actions of the game, a goal and assist, you're pass marks. I don't care what you did.
I'm going to have to jump in here, James, because I don't really care if you're buying it. Ain't no one selling that. Mo Salah plays that ball across from McAllister, opening goal. Mo Salah in that game bends it in the top corner. It's a sensational strike, a goal and assist, another game. Champions League into the record books, or continuing the record books, you should say. Palace is the only league game he doesn't contribute in, but he's still there. He's still making an impact. Then you go to Chelsea, the match winner. Let's be clear. Scores the goal, sets up Curtis Jones with a sensational picked out ball. Really is. That is amazing. Leipzig, I didn't mind that Nunes kind of pinched his goal, but Mo Salah gets an assist. It could have been a goal if Nunes doesn't sort of tap it on the line. I think it would have gone in. Arsenal, the toughest away game we faced, probably the toughest game we faced as well, Jamesy. It's late. It's, can we claw it back? Who sticks it in the net? Who is the man you look to? Mo Salah. The Carabao, again, no one's really putting in the big impacts for the month, the Carabao, without being too disrespectful. It is head and shoulders Mo Salah above everyone.
I think I count 6 goals and assists from Mo just from your little thing there, which is unbelievable for 1 month. Unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely. As JP says, I always forget about the Egyptian king. I don't know why. JP Jamesy is so disrespectful of him, but that is what we deal with, unfortunately, on this show.
Hang on.
He hates him. I've always said it. Jamesy hates Mo Salah.
I absolutely love him, and he's a god. And the way that he is so underrated in the Premier League, it is criminal what he does time.
Well, you just did it. You are the criminal.
No, because it's consistency, right? The player over the games who play the best is Gravenberch, because he's the guy who's consistent through the whole games. That's all.
Let me put it to you this way, Jamesy. The player that you take out of our games that affects us most is unquestionably Mo Salah. You take Mo Salah out of this month, and it will look very, very different. Very, very different.
Yeah, and there's you. As Eddie Gibbs points out there, James, with Mo Salah on your T-shirt, calling him criminally underrated and not naming him as your player of the month. If you don't end up charged on the back of this pod, it's great.
I want that T-shirt off.
Here,
absolutely.
It's all about opinions. That's it. That's all I'm saying. So, whatever.
And we'll move on swiftly from an absolute nonsense one. So, coming back to you, Mark, hopefully for a little bit of sense in this. I mean, he's talked a lot. There's been a lot made of his comments, and I'm just going to go out the gate here. I have been so impressed by Arne Slot this month, as in the tactics, what's happened, the variations, the press conference. Basically, name me anything you want. What have you made of the, I say manager, but head coach, to give him his formal title?
Yeah, honestly, I'm over the moon with the guy. I really am. I think it's one of those where you don't want to jump the gun and become, a fanboy too early, because you could just be setting yourself up for a bit of a fall. But not in our wildest dreams did we think we'd find ourselves where we are. So you can take him just on face value with results and, judge him that way. And he's knocked that out of the park. There's no question about that. Knocked that out of the park. But then you dig a little deeper into it, and he's actually done things better than Klopp in some ways, as far as his tactical switches in games. For me, it's a clear advantage he has over what Klopp did. I often thought Klopp would struggle in games to affect the game, to change things that would swing it in our favour. And I think Arnie's brilliant at that. I really do. He seems to read the game and the pattern of the game so well, and small tweaks are making big differences. And we seem to just grow with every game, from strength to strength. Then you kind of flick to the personal side of it, and I don't know if you guys have watched that Sander Westerveld interview that came out on LCTV. I really, really enjoyed it. Thought it was really good. I thought he just, again, spoke plainly, candidly, just very clear, very succinct, makes complete sense. He seems like an average guy, but just utterly obsessed by what he does. I didn't actually realize that he didn't have his family here with him, until I was listening to that interview. He is waking up, and from the minute he wakes till the minute he goes to bed, he is Liverpool Football Club. That's all he's doing. Unbelievable. I've just been so impressed with him in every single regard. We are still early in the season, but there's not a test he hasn't passed so far. And he couldn't have done any more. I mean, I've seen some people kind of complaining that he hasn't maybe tried to get into the fans' good books enough.
Yeah.
Tried to play to it. I've seen a bit of that. And, you know, I understand that. And I do think Anfield's a weapon that can be weaponized, if you know what I mean. Klopp knew how to do it. He used Anfield to, you know, to Liverpool's strength. And Arnie hasn't done that yet. He seems to be going kind of the way of the results are the power, you know, and the early goal will get the crowd up. It doesn't take me, you know, throwing my hands at them or whatever. It'll take care of itself as long as we get where I want us to be. So, you know, you can't criticize a guy for his personality in that department, can you? He's been who he is. This is who he is. So I want the guy who's going to come in and manage us to win games. And, you know, that's who he's showing himself to be. I don't care if he throws his arms around.
Nah, I don't need to love the man as much, but I can love his results, and I can love the best start since Paisley, as people are made out. And yeah, it's interesting, as you said, he's not got his family with him at all. That probably makes sense why he hasn't took that Klopp mansion, has he, off the club as well? So he'd just be rattling around on by himself, really, in there. Jamesy, let's see if we're going to criminally charge you on this one.
No, I just love his originality. I just love that, you know, he's not trying to be someone that he's not. He's just kind of just accept me who I am. This is it. He plays fantastic football. He's composed, and when he talks to the media as well, articulates, makes sure that he doesn't get anything in quoted or anything like that. And it's just brilliant to see. Watching how he kind of sets a team up, and he's obsessed with Liverpool Football Club, and that's what we need. You know, sitting down before he took the job, looking at all the matches, looked at what's good, what's bad, and he's kind of just amplified it. And that's something that you have to have a lot of respect for. Didn't come in, didn't put a big stamp on his actual team, didn't go on loads of transfers. He was like focusing on what he has now, and then kind of he will move into what he needs. So it's just I just really like what I see.
Yeah, even just a very minor thing, but I thought his rotation at Brighton was just bang on as well. You know, just got that dead on. You know, rested enough guys that we should be strong going into the weekend. Enough to still look like us, still play like us. New managers often struggle with those little bits. You know, how important is each competition? What should I do? When should I rest? I thought he got that dead on. Really did.
I guess one thing that it takes a little bit of used to is that the pass, and we're so used to that frenzy. It's nearly like a fish frenzy where the crowd's all stirred up, and it's not like that at Anfield. It's very composed in the pass, and it's like, right, we're going to make the right pass, and if it's not there, it's not on, and it's just kind of keeping the ball. And it takes a wee while to get used to. The same as the Arsenal game as well. That kind of right at the throat. No, it wasn't. It was calm and it was composed.
Yeah, and the only other criticism I've seen of him, which I think is nonsense personally, we know obviously out of possession we're going to set up with that 4-2-4, aren't we? Like, so Bosley will join in the press, it'll be Mac and Grab, and very much there's been a bit of criticism recently that if an opposition team drops a player back into the midfield, McAllister and Gravenberch become outnumbered rapidly. I think you look at it, that is partly by design. It's a risk-reward approach, aren't we? We're trying to win the ball high up the pitch, hence 4 people are committed. There will be times it's played through the press, but because of the setup, there's almost that acceptance the ball will probably go wide. And if actually you look at the XG we're conceding, it's so low. I think sometimes people get a bit het up, you know, in that regard. It's like, okay, it's not always perfect, but are you giving up quality chances time after time? The stats don't show that. That's not what it looks like at all. That's not really what we're seeing, if we're honest as well. So much to like from Arne Slot. And moving on to this one, me and Jamesy have a massive soft spot for Darwin Núñez. Mark despises the very bones of him. Jamesy, will come to you first of all. A surprising month for Darwin Núñez in a positive sense. What do you reckon?
Absolutely. I've used this a lot, which is composed. He seems to be a bit more composed, a bit more level-headed, a bit more team, not as rash, pressing, running, making the right pass. Again, obviously, we would like to see a wee bit more of the finishing, but I feel that will come as well. I'm very impressed in what I've seen so far, and again, I think that will get better as well when Slot's working with him.
Yeah, Mark, you pretty much cast him into hell last time we talked, so surely a bit of an impression on you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still, as always, willing him to do well. He just hasn't in the past. And just for the record, behind closed doors, these two were writing him off last month as well. And I think we could all agree we didn't expect him to come into the team and grab it the way he did, because he's grabbed it. He's been, there's always been this kind of line between too passionate, gets kind of lost in it all, loses his head, loses his composure. Gets a little flippant the way he snatches at chances, his finishing, and just I think a lot of what is wrong or has been wrong with Darwin comes into something in his mind, a little bit of control that he lacks, and I thought he harnessed that really, really well this month. He used the passion, like some of his tracking back was out of this world. It really was. From the first time he came on to his two starts, I thought he just, in some ways, he was the tempo setter for the team. You found him in positions at left back, at right back, chasing into midfield, hunting the ball down. He did give away a few fouls, as he always does, but I mean, he often won it back too. He's been very useful in the kind of defensive side of our game. And also, he's taken his only big chance really that he's had goal-wise. His pass for Salah was not an easy one in the Arsenal game. He had to get that dead on. That had to be the right speed, the right direction, had to be spot on, and he did it. Is in the big moments, he was perfect. He really was. He was perfect. I have almost no complaints about Darwin this month. Actually, truth be told, even though Jota has had decent numbers this season, haven't been that impressed with him. I think he's looked fairly anonymous in a lot of the games, and the couple of games we've seen from Darwin there, for me, are of a higher standard than Jota showed for the rest of the season. And if it was me, if I was the manager now, I would it would be Darwin's shirt until he starts missing open goals again.
Well, see, he has to end it on a negative. He can't help himself, can he? But let's just bring it into context for all fairness. I think if you break down the month for Núñez, Bologna, he was pretty woeful, wasn't he? He just lost the ball repeatedly. He finished it well, but he was offside. And almost you saw in that game, his shoulders just slumped and he was non-effective and he was subbed. And you did start to wonder, like, what is going on? And then Palace, he doesn't play. And probably maybe the best thing people ignore that happened for him, that ban that was overturned, suspended, whatever it is, through South American officials, he goes and plays for Uruguay and he gets a bit of game time, which he probably needed, probably helped him a bit. No one expects him to come back and have the impact. Let's not pretend on that, because Jota starts against Chelsea and maybe but for a massive lump tossing Adebayor landing on his rib, Jota doesn't go off. Darwin doesn't have the month he has, but he comes on against Chelsea. Brilliant impact, absolutely runs his nuts off. And like you said, he didn't win them all, but he was just involved in duels and he was just pinching. He was just being awkward in Chelsea's attack when we needed, to be resolute as well. He has an impact in that. Brilliant. Then you go, as you say, to Leipzig and the match winner again, another calm, composed game like Jamesy mentioned. So there's loads of positives there. Then at Arsenal, and I think this is important, he doesn't get a lot of the ball, but he does a lot of selfless work, a lot of running, a lot of pressing, running the channels. And it comes down to that key moment, doesn't it? Because the Darwin of last season, when he gets that ball from Trent and he runs the channel, let's be honest, he probably takes it on and blams it into Rowe's head, doesn't he? And you're like, like, it is what it is. But it's brilliantly weighted. It just allows Salah to open up his foot and tuck it in. And I think you're right. At the moment, obviously, we're going to talk about injuries very shortly. It just feels like it's Darwin's shirt to lose. It is a big week as well, or a big month coming up. So we'll talk about that. But I suppose it steers into this, Mark. Injuries. We've been quite good with injuries so far. And we had a few breaks and things like that. And we're thinking, come on, we need a bit of luck. We're going to have these players back. And we're thinking we're going to have Chiesa back. We're going to have Harvey back. Jota just looks like a bit of he's winded. It's not really borne out that way, though, has it, to be honest?
Yeah. So, I mean, injury-wise, I tend not to get too concerned by Jota's in and outs. in my mind, that is the way it is with Jota, and sometimes you'll have him and it'll be good, and sometimes you won't and he won't, and so be it. Alisson, despite the great form of our goalkeepers that have come in for him, is a worry because, we have the best goalkeeper in the world and you're going to miss him. And Kelleher's been great, but he won't be as good as Alisson. And there will be a couple of moments in the next month or two where we will wish we had Alisson. I don't doubt that. So there's definitely a concern over Alisson. I hope the sooner the better on that one. I have concerns with both Trent and Ibu, that they're two guys that do get muscle injuries and they're playing a lot of minutes here. I know Trent's getting pulled out late in games, but I'm kind of wincing every time I see team sheets in games where I don't think we needed to play them. Particularly maybe some of the European ones and the Carabao ones, although neither did play in the Carabao this time. I just would, Ibu was the one selected to come on late in that game. I would rather just see him sitting at home. I really would. Don't want to see him coming on late and putting in a sprint in a game like that where we're holding on. I don't know if maybe the information slot is getting from the experts, from the analysts, is that with the new regimes they're on, these personalized regimes, with the less distances being covered in training, the less intensity in training, that it is just okay. That these guys are up to it. They only weren't up to it the way they were kind of being put through the mill. But from what we've seen over the last couple of years with these guys, I still am worried about it. And then I think actually the most interesting one when we're talking about injuries is Robertson, because I don't know if you caught it today in Slot's press conference, but he mentioned that Robertson essentially had no pre-season and he'd come into the season cold, and that the reason you were seeing Mora Tsimikas wasn't kind of a form or choice thing. It was really just about numbers. It was kind of Robertson isn't up to playing that many games yet because he's not had the pre-season to get him there. Now, that's interesting in itself, because I was starting to come to the conclusion that maybe Tsimikas was close to rivaling him in Slot's eyes, because I think a lot of the fan base would be okay with that, because Robertson hasn't started the season well. I don't think anyone would say he has. But also maybe a little bit of encouragement that Robertson has better form ahead of him, that it is maybe a fitness issue that has seen him decline so steeply at the start of this season, because it's unfortunately becoming a really noticeable pattern that Trent's probably enjoying, because nobody's looking down his side anymore, and it's all targeted at left back. Now we've never seen that since Robertson's been at the club. It's always been down Trent's end, because Robertson, Van Dijk, and whichever of Gomez, Matip, Kanate, or whoever, they were seen as so solid a three. Trent was the obvious target, and I don't think there's any doubt that the traffic is moving further down Trent's side in every game. And you see it in the likes of the Saka goal. He was beaten pretty easily. Saka drawing back inside onto his stronger foot. That feels like a moment to me that we wouldn't have seen a year ago or 18 months ago. It feels like a Robertson in decline, and I really hope that is an injury thing and not a permanent decline.
Yeah, I'm going to have a say on that shortly. But James, I'll come to you, because it's wrong to say injury crisis. That would be a completely false statement. But we've just started to have a few. It's still a lot of miles better than what we saw last season. But what are you making of the injuries? Is it a concern yet for you at all?
No, I honestly don't think it is. The reason being is because we're a lot more intelligent at managing the load, making the right calls. It's a different system. The way that players are getting injured is it's knocks or it's actual tackles or something like that, which is completely different to training. If you look at the stats, you will see compared to last season, like Kanate, like if you're talking about injury worries this month, we always think about Kanate, because again, we know that he has muscular injuries. If I was going to say anyone, and again, just to keep a wee note and touch wood it doesn't happen, is Gravenberch, and how he turns, and he's playing a lot of football and stuff like that. He's international, and I just being mindful of him, that he gets targeted a lot more. When he does that we turn, that it's just a matter of someone going in and clattering him. Think about Casado last year when he got absolutely crunched So that's all I would say. But at the moment, Dave, I'm not worried about injuries, and the reason being is because of the S&C, the conditioning, and the personalised programs as well. It seems a lot better.
Yeah, it does seem a lot better than last season. There's no two ways about it. I mean, let's not lie. None of us predicted this kind of availability. Never mind the amount of performance from Samibu. Like, no chance at all. Most of the team are fit, and even to some degree, you think Jota would have gone out. It does seem to have been unlucky. I mean, the fact that it's so long tells me that Adebayor has probably fractured his rib a little bit, or cracked it, something like that, but he's landed on it rather than just bruising. Harvey Elliott is on England duty. That's important to say as well. Chiesa, you kind of expected maybe a lot of people him to be in and out anyway. We were unsure about his fitness. The Robbo one, I've got to be honest on this, Mark. I thought that was good management from a manager trying to defend his player. I think it's a good one to bring in. I think if you look at the signs we've seen, there's only you can say small sample size, but we are 14 games, aren't we, into the season where Robertson's played 99% of them. You can count his good games on one hand. And also the big underlying factor that we've kind of alluded to before, Robertson's just not really a slot fullback, isn't he? Slot will need his, fullbacks to tend to be good one-on-one defenders. I'm not saying Robertson's bad, but if you think about his major attributes, it is the ability to get up and down, bomb on usually, isn't it? Overlap. And yes, you can do that on occasions, but the fullbacks especially need to be able to use both feet to come inside, don't they? And keep that passing going. Robertson is just so one-footed. It's unbelievable. And it's almost strange to say, and I'm asking you this honestly, Mark, I don't think necessarily Tsimikas is a better player than Robertson, but do you think Tsimikas might be a better slot-style fullback in this system?
I definitely see why you're saying that, and I do agree the kind of technical level is more in line with probably the profile we'd be looking for. But I still do just personally think that the experience Robertson carries, the big games we've had him in before, the fact that he, I think, would admit himself, he has a better level that he can reach. I still think I would just lean Robertson's way. But honestly, mate, the truth is, I don't think either of them are the answer. I think it is a position that needs replaced. I don't think either of them going forward are good enough to be our starting left back. And it's actually, we all were DM this, DM that in the summer. We've kind of been, had to eat some humble pie on that with what Gravenberch has delivered. Left back, we all said it. We were all right. It needed looked at. It hasn't been looked at. We need a new left back.
And a bit of a surprise question just to finish October, gents. So, in a word, Jamesy, I'll come to you first. Priority for January, midfielder or left back?
Left back.
Mark?
Left back.
Yeah, I think I'm going to make it a full house. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. Although
it's a close one, though. I mean, an injury to Gravenberch or whatever, and obviously the season looks really different. Whereas an injury to Robertson, Tsimikas comes in. It's not. We haven't changed a great deal, level wise there. It's close. It's close.
And there's still Gomez, etc., as an option. So, yeah, we'll be interested to see what happens. Obviously, we'll talk about January a lot closer to the time. But we'll move on to this. Now, it's a crazy busy period, but when I actually look at the fixtures in November, there's only actually 5, but there's another sodding international break. Absolutely insane that there's a sodding international break in November. But let's lay it out, people. We'll play Brighton at home tomorrow. Leverkusen at home, Villa at home, 3 in a week before the international break. That is tough, isn't it? And then after the international break, Southampton away, followed by the small matter of Real Madrid at Anfield to finish the month. I mean, Jamesy, when you look at that, there's a lot of tough fixtures, but you're going to put your neck on the line firmly and solidly here. Start giving me some predictions for those games.
I'm going to go optimistic. I think we'll win all of them. Yeah, you've heard it right. Yeah, I think we'll win every single game. I really do. Looking at Villa, looking at Leverkusen, and even looking at Real Madrid as well. I just honestly do think I have it just that we're going to win all the games.
Christ, I took the piss out of his negativity for October, and he's gone full 360 for November. Then wins across the board. Mark,
I'm not actually that far away from that. I think we'll win at Brighton. I think we'll beat Leverkusen. I think we'll beat Villa. I think I remember the game against Villa last season. It was a 3-0, I think it was, at home. Szoboszlai scored that beauty, I think. I'm sure that was the Villa game. Remember that left-footed volley? It comes back to him, slice across it. And we dispatched them fairly easily. So I'm usually guilty of kind of recency bias with those things. I kind of just think back to the last one and think, well, that was kind of easy. We'll just do that again. So I've got us beating Villa as well, and then I do think we'll just have too much for Southampton, I should think. And then the one that I don't see us winning is the Madrid game. I think we will likely lose to Madrid. The reason I'm saying that is I expect us to beat Leverkusen, and at that stage, table-wise, we've found ourselves in just such a fortuitous position where we're all but through in the top of it, and I think the kind of gravity of the game will have ceased, other than the fact that we're playing against Real Madrid, the world's greatest team. But nonetheless, I'll take that all day long. 4 wins and either a draw or defeat. I'll say defeat against Madrid. We'll find ourselves right at the top of the table, heading for semi-finals and looking like we're through in Europe.
Interesting. Well, John P there thinks you're talking absolute wham, saying Real Madrid are going to leave Anfield more than embarrassed. And it's funny that you called them the greatest team in the world when they just got, as John P says, absolutely spanked at home 4-0 by Barcelona. Maybe I'm going to go on the side because Jamesy went uber positive. Mark brought us up to a simmer and then pissed on our chips with a defeat at home. So I'm going to spread it a bit. I do think we're going to beat Brighton. I do think we'll beat Leverkusen. I do think we'll beat Villa. Maybe that's just too much optimism. Who knows? But I think it's going to be good before the international break. Southampton, sounds disrespectful, but I don't care. I think the Carabao team could beat Southampton right now. They're just that bad, in all honesty, aren't they? You see where they are in the table. Real Madrid, I kind of hope, if everything's gone to that plan, a draw. Because we'd have 12 points, wouldn't we, in the Champions League? And I know it's a new format and it's difficult to say exactly, but the suspicion is that 12 points is probably enough to qualify anyway, or in the automatic top 8 rather than having to play the extra games. So, yeah, that's where I'm going. 4 wins, 1 draw, and Real Madrid not being, hopefully, fingers crossed, too important. I mean, we are being a bit blasé here, Mark. Are you looking at any of them and going, I am a bit nervous about any of those at all?
Honestly, I think the Brighton and the Villa games are really hard games. I think those are 2 excellent sides. I'm not taking them lightly when I say I think we'll win them. Anfield is a place where we usually win. It's maybe the hardest ground in the country to go for any other away side. And were either of those in the away grounds, I might have made a different prediction. I think Anfield will be the kind of deciding factor in them. So I'm somewhere between those 2 for which one makes me nervous. I would say probably actually the Brighton one tomorrow, because Brighton, for one reason or another, have given us trouble over the years in various games, and they play, pretty fluid football. They seem to have no problem scoring against us over the years. And again, that kind of recency bias, it just, I'm left remembering those games where they humbled us, and I'm hoping, for different.
Okay, recency bias, Mark is claiming. Jamesy, any of them games make you nervous at all?
I think tomorrow, I think that's going to be a tough test. I really do. I think them Brighton brought on Matoma, very, very good player, and very dangerous as well. Brighton have some speed merchants, so it'll be interesting to see attacking down those wings, who starts in left back. It'll be interesting to see that. I think that's a creative threat in itself. And then Villa, on their day, they're a great team. They're very well organised, they're compact, and they can play good football. So it's not like it's just like, oh, they'll definitely win, but they will get their 3 points. It's a game of two halves. It's moments as well, so you don't know what's going to actually happen. But I do believe that we're going to be too strong. And in regards to Real Madrid, when you watched Real Madrid against Barcelona, like the way it was, there's just something there that's the disconnect. And I think that it's just, we've had a lot of heartache through playing Real Madrid, that I think it's time to kind of take back what's ours. And even though it's going to be 12 points, having 12 points at the end of November would just be amazing. And then again, we can just kick on for the rest of the actual the games.
Wow. A game of two halves, a game of moments, take back what's ours. Did you get enough cliches in that answer? There you go. But yeah, we will take that across the board. So we will see what November brings, ladies and gents. Crazy when you think about it. There's only 5 games, but yeah, December when that comes is absolute madness. And the final section that we'll look at, ladies and gents, is a bit of one where we're going to be talking about the forwards. We called it forward thinking. Now, on the surface, ladies and gents, 6 attackers. We're well stocked, aren't we? Arguably, the options are the best in the Premier League, world football, some would argue, and quite understandably as well. Couple of things to this, though. The Mo Salah question we're going to turn to, because obviously, 8 months left on his contract, isn't he? That's the big elephant in the room. You then look at the other forwards, especially if you talk about strikers in the left side. I mean, there's no issues with Gakpo, but this summer, Luis Diaz and Diogo Jota will both be 28 and have 2 years left on their deals. And we know that's kind of prime time, isn't it, for renewal, sell, that type of thing as well. Then there's the Darwin Núñez conundrum, which will probably just rumble all the way till the end of the season. Will we see Chiesa? That's a different kind of question anyway, really, isn't it, at the moment? So there's a bit of a debate, but there's a few questions to this 6 and what will happen. And you guys will have seen it, there's no doubts. Everyone will have seen it, people. The links to Marmoush, isn't it, recently? The links to Gyökeres. There's quite a few forwards being linked to Anfield. So it will be interesting to see what happens. Now, Jamesy, the massive elephant in the room is Mo Salah's contract in that forward line. And there's not really been much talk, particularly since Mo Salah speaks out himself at Old Trafford. You'd hope there would be more noise. More noise. There's not really been anything that indicates anything is close at all either. In 2 months today, the 1st of January, Jamesy, Mo Salah can sign a pre-contract agreement with an overseas football club. I mean, let's just let that ruminate for a second. How big a disaster is it if Mo Salah leaves Anfield this summer?
That's the way you put that, that's a great question. I do think he's replaceable, but again, he's put a real point in regards to October and his numbers massively. But you have to think about the evolution of Liverpool.
Why do you hate him? Tell us. Why do you hate him?
I don't hate him, but it's a way you brought the question up. Look, Mo Salah is an unbelievable player. Okay, I cannot say it. However, if he's not going to sign, it's not a completely disaster. Okay, that's it. It's not a disaster. It's kind of just sort of it's one of those things. It's not like I don't hate him. It's you just have to think about the nature of the football club. What happens if he went out tomorrow and he got injured?
One of those things is when you wash a fiver in your jeans. It just happens type of things. Like, let's try and go a bit sane then. Mark, same question. How big a disaster is it if Mo Salah leaves this summer?
For me, it's still a complete disaster because Mo is still punching at a level that almost no forward in Europe is. And, the shape of the guy, the condition he keeps himself in, the lack of injuries he's had throughout his entire career, there's no reason to think the next season and probably the one after are going to look quite similar to this one. He's already shown that his game has changed without the legs. He can do that. That's fine. His assists are there. He still finds the right spots. He still scores a bunch of goals. He wants to play for us. He's a club legend. There's records there to go and break. There's just every reason to keep this guy, sign this guy to another 2 or 3 year deal. I won't forgive it if they don't sign him up. He's on 14 games in. He's on 14 goals and assists. It's absurdly good. There is no excuse. Get it done.
Do you know the only mistake we've made there? And I actually made this before I checked on the pod. You forget it's 15 because Arsenal makes it 8 goals and 7 assists. So 15 that way. Yeah. It's absolutely, yeah, I don't know what James is smoking either, John P. I'm afraid. We're not going to subscribe to any of those types of things. But 15 goals and assists in 14 games. Like you said, an absolute record chaser. I think if you look as well, you talked about stats, and I get that as well, Jamesy, and looking at the whole picture. There's only 2 games this season where he's not made a goal contribution.
Yeah.
That's how important he is to us. And if you look at the possibilities, and we'll come on to these, but with a couple of them being 28 and having 2 years left, you have questions around them. The Núñez conundrum's still there. It's early days. You don't want to sort of hammer Chiesa just now, but there's nothing that indicates he is a reliable option, is there, right now? So to try and keep everything on the status quo and enhance things, to me, it is just absolutely criminal if we don't sign Mo Salah. I think there's just a huge hole with enough to do as it is. Yeah, I think it would be absolute insanity beyond belief. And I am actually really surprised at what you said, Jamesy. Really, really am. Changed your mind at all?
What you said was a disaster at the end of the season. Okay, let me clear this up. I want him to sign. I want him to sign his contract. I understand how important he is to the team. But if it happens in January that he doesn't sign, it's not a disaster. He'll be replaceable and we have to move on, unfortunately. That's it. That's what I'm saying.
That would take some replacing. Some of us might see it differently, but there we go on that. And gents, let's delve into it. So to finish this, I'll kind of flip between the two of you to see what you do. So I'm looking for an answer. Either would you renew, would you look to sell, or do they just stay? I think we'll do the easiest one first of all. Cody Gakpo in great form and really firing under Arne Slot. Mark, I'll come to you first. This should be easy.
Yeah, the reality is Gakpo is the only one of the forwards that nobody's talking about in the does he stay or does he go? And that's correct. He shouldn't be getting talked about. He's raised his game, looks great, all day keep.
Jamesy, Gakpo?
All day keep.
Yeah, nice and easy. Now, we'll talk about the two who will be 28 in the summer. Summer birthday not too far away from Jota, and will have 2 years left on their deal, which it is important to talk about them in that context because we know how Liverpool, Edwards, Hughes, Ward, etc. normally work in that regard. So, Jota, Mark.
Yeah, Jota's probably the one that pains me the most to say it, but I just think with the age, there are rumours of the kind of wages he's now looking to find himself on. Should he sign a new deal? The time left on his deal and the unfortunate injury record that he has. I think if you could get somewhere, 40 million plus for Jota and reinvest that into a younger thing, I think I would sell Jota.
Interesting. Jamesy?
I would be the same. Just because of his injury record, he comes back, he scores a bunch of goals, and then he gets injured, and then we're like, right, what's next? He comes back, and it seems that he's in that kind of pattern. So, fortunately, I would sell him. If we can get good money for him and bring someone in, then that's it. And also age factor 28. So it means if he gets a 3 or 4 year deal, he's into his 30s, and again, it's that resilient side of it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to make this a full house. Jota, when he's fit and available and firing, he's a big impact. And like you said earlier, Mark, he's not always playing well, but his goal contributions are so important. But the part of being a top-class player, it's not just ability, it's availability. And for whatever reason, whether people will label it injury-prone, just unlucky, it's not happened a full season, hasn't it, with Diogo Jota? And it's struggling to see it at 28. So for the right money, like you said, I probably want higher. If you can fetch 50 million plus, I think there's a replacement there to be had. So yeah, that would be what I would do. We'll have to see what happens. The other one will be 28 in the summer. Luis Diaz looked gone in the summer, didn't we? We all expected that. A lot of people did, an Anthony Gordon style trade, but never happened. Started the season well, dipped off a little bit, it's fair to say, in October as well, but got on the score sheet the other night. Luis Diaz, Mark.
Yeah, keep and renew for me with Diaz. I think there's been enough there, and there were times last season when we had so many injuries and stuff. I really felt he was carrying bits of the team, and the start of this season, he was, major part of the driving force. I think there's enough there to kind of back him, to have faith in him. I do agree there's been a dip though this month, and good to see him get a goal last night. It was a good goal, as credit where it's due. He dribbled really well, sneaked it into the near post. I still want to see a little bit more of that, a little bit more big moments from him, rather than kind of choosing the wrong option here and there, maybe missing more chances than you'd like. But I think there's been enough. I think keep and renew.
Interesting. Jamesy?
I would sell Dave. And the reason I would sell is he's 28. Is he potentially, would you say that he's world class? He's hit his ceiling. And I think that if we can get someone in a wee bit younger, I think, and again, with the experience side of it, has he got like loads of experience? Not really. I think that he's a great player, but he's not world class. So I would sell if we can get money. I think the Slot's done a remarkable job with him. But yeah, that's me. And exactly what you're saying. Sometimes his decision making, it's not great. It's not like he's not young. He's 28, so it's not like he can't go up on another level. His ceiling's made.
Well, for a man who said it wasn't disaster, he's now selling our whole forward line with Mo Salah departing at the same time as well. So it's going to be a busy summer if Jamesy has his way. To be honest, I get the feeling that. We don't know this because there's always been that story, hasn't there, that Diaz is on quite a low wage and that figure's fluctuated a lot. Don't get me wrong. But he's the only one or only real forward that's been at Anfield for this time in recent years that hasn't had any type of wage bump, any type of renewal extension, whatever you want to call it. So I just get the feeling that you maybe don't want to change absolutely everything. I do take your point, Jamesy, but I think to keep him and Gakpo as that left-sided option, just that competition seems to be going well. So I am steering to the side of renewal. But at the same time, if a decent bid came in, like 60 million, something like that, I think it's right to put it on the table and have a good examination.
I would agree with you there. If it gets as high as that, then, it's a different conversation. And you could for sure reinvest that, more wisely than giving him a new deal.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. And the final one, because we can't really bring Chiesa into this, gents. He's just at the club, so we'll kind of steer him away from this. But the Darwin Núñez conundrum. We'll go to the hater side first of all, Mark. What are you doing with Darwin Núñez?
I would keep Núñez. I wouldn't renew at this stage, but I'd definitely keep him. I think the main issue is that there's going to be a lot of upheaval in the next couple of years in the forward line. And I'm not really a fan of upheaval of that level, if you can avoid it. And Darwin isn't doing so badly that, he's a major issue that must be replaced kind of thing in my eyes. And just for continuity's sake, I would keep Núñez for the time being. Maybe even revisit it in one more year's time, and see where we're at with them. But for the time being, there's enough promise there. We have enough other things that look like they're going to change in the next year or two. I would keep Darwin.
Interesting. Jamesy?
I would sell him. No, I'm joking. I would keep him all day. No, I would keep him. Again, young enough. I think he has a bigger ceiling. I also think as well that he can improve his game. He just needs that proper manager to put his arm around him and saying, "Look, let's make this happen." So I think that he's definitely a diamond in the rough. I think there's a lot more to come from Darwin Núñez.
I'm still swaying on this. And by the way, I'm not saying this with any strict confidence that this is my entrenched decision, because you've got to sort of think about this. But for me, right now, I think continuity is important. I can see that he's starting to click a little bit with Slot. So for me, that is what I would do. So that is our full house there, ladies and gents. And the final question to finish the show, it is a visit to Anfield. Me and Mark will be there tomorrow. It is Brighton. Very quickly, Mark, give me a scoreline for tomorrow.
I'll go 3-1. 3-1 the Reds.
Tough game is apparently a 3-1 cruise. Interesting. Jamesy?
I think it's 1-0.
I will go 2-1, and I don't think this will be an easy game at all, but a full house of victories. So there we go, ladies and gents. In summary, a surprising but positive October. Wild optimism coming in November, and Jamesy's selling the entire fucking forward line in the summer. So there's a lot going on. But for another Red Alert, for another month, ladies and gents, that was us for Anfield Index.
Cheers.